My name is Dave McLean. I'm the founder and brewmaster of Magnolia Brewery in San Francisco. I opened Magnolia in 1997 after several years of trying to get it off the ground. I went to UC Davis Brewing Science program, and prior to that I started out as a home brewer and got really serious about it, decided to go to school to study it, and just dove in and tried to open a brew pub. Possibly not the best idea with the limited experience I had, but I made it work, and so we've been open for 16 years. You know, having been to a lot of brew pubs when I was in the process of opening Magnolia, I had a pretty strong sense that there was an opportunity to do better food than a lot of people were doing at the time. I think brew pubs were still, I wouldn't say in their infancy, but it was 1997. There wasn't quite the explosion that there is now of craft beer. It just seemed like the choices that you make and the vision that you have for brewing, and the kind of ingredient sourcing decisions that you make, who you choose to work with, and where you find those ingredients, how you approach your craft, those didn't seem to stay in the brewery in my mind. Those seem like sort of personal philosophy kind of decisions. I think that what you do in the kitchen and what you do in the brewery in the same building, the vision should be consistent. And so that was sort of the baseline Magnolia starting point. Well, here we are in our new brewery project. It's a big expansion for Magnolia across town from the original Haight location. We're over here in the Dogpatch neighborhood, and we're building a much larger production brewery, and attached to it a new restaurant. And the restaurant concept over here is a little different than Magnolia Pub on Haight Street. It's barbecue, but it's informed by all the same values. Again, it comes back to kind of what are our larger kind of food values, because beer is food, and again, what you do with beer is reflective of how you think about our food system and about food and food quality. So just the fact that this is a sort of a different menu and a different kind of food program, it gets all of its inspiration from what we've been doing for 16 years over on Haight Street. A lot of the same ideas about where we get the animals from, for what ranchers we work with. All of that is really adaptable. We've chosen, kind of fell into one kind of menu format at the Haight Street Pub, and it works really well, and we like it. But I think one of the cool things that we've discovered, and a lot of people discovered, is that beer is a very friendly pairing beverage to go with a lot of different dishes and a lot of different food, and so why not kind of take what we've learned and try to express it in a different way. And that's sort of the impetus for what we're trying to do here. I think I got to fall back on the fact that beer is a really versatile beverage, and it does pair really well with a lot of great food. And so there's a little bit of there are little areas where there's some great crossover. Magnolia Pub is really inspired by the sort of great British social institution of the pub, the public house. So we have a few nods to sort of pub or gastropub cooking in our menu there, and we also have I have a personal affinity for a lot of English influenced session beers, bitters, milds. We use a lot of Marisot or barley in a lot of our beers, and that's kind of a signature Magnolia flavor. So there's some conceptual moments that dovetail together, between the food and the beer. But the sort of larger, happy accident, if you will, is that there are a lot of beers that work really well with a lot of different kinds of food, and there's certainly a beer for every occasion. And so we really try not to pigeonhole our menu items and our beers too much. We really try to kind of allow there to be a lot of subjectivity, whether that's our staff being subjective and having favorite, discovering pairing combinations that go well together, and then suggesting that to our guests. It's also not our place to suggest that the guests not try something. So if they find something that works, they like it, that's great. I will say we are pretty meat centric. We do a lot of, over at the pub we do a lot of roasted dishes and the grill, a lot of burgers and steaks and things like that. Those things are great. That's great beer food because of the char from the grill and the caramelization of sugar from the roasting process, which really dovetails with the, a lot of the caramelized notes that come from malt kilning and from the boiling wort. So there are some natural hooks, some flavor hooks that make our whole menu pretty comfortable in the beer environment. And then when you take that, same idea over here to the barbecue idiom, we've got, again, slow-cooked smoked meats that have a lot of, long cooking time with a lot of, like, slow development of flavor and the kind of crust or bark that develops on good barbecue and the caramelization of sugars. All those things are going to be great with, a lot of our kind of the core of our beers, which are a lot of English bitters and milds that use some crystal malts and use some caramelized, have some caramelized notes in them. So, it's a natural. My take on the breadth of the sort of beverage program, whether you integrate an ambitious wine list into the mix, whether you add spirits and cocktails, that again comes back to back to the vision idea. The idea that, to some degree, when we make beer, we're making a beverage. We're making something that's a social beverage. People drink it, alone or together. They drink it to enjoy it. They drink it for the taste. We're selling taste and flavor and hopefully diversity of flavor, individuality. We're selling something that we make a certain way, that only we make that way. I think those values extend into people's entire eating and drinking experience. Just like for me, it's hard for me to go into the kitchen and treat our food program differently than I treat the beer program. I'd have a hard time treating the other secondary aspects of our beverage program differently. If you're gonna have wine, because some people prefer to have a glass of wine, and we're there for them. We're a pub. We're trying to provide hospitality, and part of that is in anticipating people's needs. And hopefully the kind of person that's drawn to a brewery restaurant that puts a lot of commitment into its food program and communicates that to the guests. Hopefully, whatever the thing is that they want, we've tried to think through a quality product or selection of products that's going to meet those needs and be consistent, so that person who's the 1 out of 4 people at the table drinking wine, they're not feeling like they should have ordered beer or they ordered poorly. They get a really great glass of wine, and we've sourced those just as carefully as we source everything else. Coffee even, like little things like coffee. We bring in a really quality coffee and try to make it right, because we pretty much believe these things to our core, and that's just how we run the business. A lot of the selling of our very precious limited quantity beer outside of the pub for a lower margin doesn't make a lot of business sense just by the numbers, but it's really great branding and great marketing and great exposure, and I feel like, for a long time that helped drive traffic back to the pub. There was never enough of it to really make it a significant revenue stream, and in fact, it's, every drop of beer sold somewhere else is selling for less per drop than what we sell it for at the pub, which is the reason for building a new expansion brewery, and this brewery will give us a 5-fold increase in production with a lot of room to grow. We can get, probably twice again as big as that. But I think that, you start looking at the big picture of the ways in which people are engaging with craft beer these days, and I think a lot of that can percolate back to the brewpub model, and I think that what we're doing is a little dose of that. I think that the idea that you can have a complete dining experience that I think, that it should be expected, that you could actually assume that maybe you're going to walk into a brewpub and have one of those great all-around positive dining experiences. I'd like to see more of it. I think all of the ways in which craft beer has kind of expanded and found its way into a lot of different segments and areas of the food and beverage world, I think a lot of that can inform the brewpub model itself.